Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into one of the most powerful stories from Greek mythology, the tale of Prometheus, the titan who gambled everything for humanity and paid an eternal price for it. Now, you might think this is just some old fable about gods and monsters, but at its heart, the story of Prometheus is really a timeless warning about our own ambition, our endless search for knowledge, and that very thin, very dangerous line between progress and disaster. And it asks a question that's more relevant now than it's ever been. All right, so let's get into it. Who was this champion for humankind? To really understand his story, we first have to understand exactly what he was. Prometheus was a titan. Now, when you think of the Greek gods, you're probably picturing Zeus, Hera, and the rest of the crew on Mount Olympus, right? Well, the Titans were the generation before them. They were the original, old-school, primordial gods who ruled the whole cosmos. Prometheus was one of these powerful, ancient beings. And here's where the story gets really personal for us. According to the myths, Prometheus had a special soft spot for humanity because, well, he supposedly made us. He is the one who is said to have literally shaped the first humans out of simple clay. So he's not just our champion. In a way, he's our creator. And he wasn't working alone. Prometheus had a brother, and his name was Epimetheus. And honestly, their names tell you everything you need to know. Prometheus means forethought. He's the planner, he thinks ahead. Epimetheus means afterthought. He's the impulsive one who only realizes he's made a mistake when it's way too late. And this had huge consequences, because when it was time to give creatures their special abilities, Epimetheus went first and just gave away all the best stuff. Claws, speed, fur, wings, to the animals, which left humans totally naked, weak, and defenseless. So Prometheus looks down and sees humanity in this fragile state, and he knows he has to do something. We just couldn't survive like that. We needed an edge, an advantage, something divine. So he decides to give us the one thing that would completely change our destiny forever. He gave us fire. And we're not talking about any old campfire here. This was the sacred fire of the gods, the one thing Zeus had explicitly forbidden mortals from ever having. The myth says Prometheus snuck up into the heavens, lit a hollow fennel stalk from the fire of the sun's chariot, and smuggled the glowing embers back down to earth. This wasn't just a nice gift. This was an act of pure rebellion. And you really can't overstate how much of a game changer this was. Fire wasn't just about warmth. It was the key that unlocked civilization itself. It gave us the ability to cook food, to forge tools and weapons, to build communities. You could say that fire was technology, the divine spark that lifted humanity right out of the mud. But stealing fire wasn't the only time Prometheus decided to defy the gods for our sake. He also used his incredible cunning to trick the king of Olympus himself, in a move that would change the relationship between gods and humans forever. Okay, so here's how this trick at Mycone went down. At this big feast, they had to decide how humans would make sacrifices to the gods from now on. So Prometheus takes a bull and divides it into two piles. In one pile, he puts all the good edible meat, but he hides it inside the bull's unappetizing stomach. In the other pile, he arranges the bones artfully and covers them with a beautiful, glistening layer of fat. He offers Zeus the choice, and of course, Zeus, fooled by the shiny exterior, chooses the pile of bones. And with that one trick, the deal was set. For all time. From that day on, whenever humans made a sacrifice, we got to keep the nourishing meat for ourselves, and the gods just got the smoke from some worthless bones. It was a huge win for humanity, and, as you can imagine, a pretty deep and personal insult to Zeus. So yeah, you can't just trick the king of the gods and then steal his sacred fire without some serious consequences. Prometheus had championed humanity, but in doing so, he had invited a terrible, terrible wrath down upon himself. Zeus was absolutely enraged. He didn't see what Prometheus did as an act of kindness. He saw it as a direct challenge to his divine authority. So his revenge was going to be equally defiant. a terrifying eternal punishment designed to be a warning to anyone else who might even think about crossing him. This is one of the most gruesome, most brutal punishments in all of mythology. Prometheus, an immortal titan, was chained to a rock on a remote mountain peak. Every single day, an eagle, which was the personal emblem of Zeus, by the way, would fly down and tear out his liver, eating it right in front of him. And because he was immortal, his liver would regenerate completely every night, only for the whole cycle of torture to start again at dawn, forever. Which brings up a fascinating detail. Of all the body parts, why the liver? Was it just some random, cruel choice? Not at all. There was a reason for it. You see, to the ancient Greeks, the liver was the very center of human emotions. It was the source of your passion, your will, your spirit. So by having the eagle devour his liver every day, Zeus wasn't just torturing Prometheus's body, he was attacking his very soul, the defiance, the passion, the part of him that stood up for humanity in the first place, day after day after day. Now, the hero Heracles did eventually free Prometheus from his chains, but the story didn't end there. The myth of Prometheus has been reborn again and again through the centuries, with each new era finding its own meaning in his rebellion and his sacrifice. So in ancient Greece, he was this clever trickster hero. But then you fast forward to the Romantic poets, people like Shelley and Byron, and he becomes the ultimate symbol of the individual genius fighting back against tyranny. And this brings us to his most famous modern interpretation of all. In 1818, Mary Shelley gave her classic novel a very telling subtitle, Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus. And the parallels here are just striking. Think about it. Both Prometheus and Dr. Frankenstein are creators. They both use a forbidden power. One uses divine fire, the other uses modern science to create life. And in the end, both are punished and ultimately destroyed by their creations after they meddle with forces they can't control. This connection really sealed Prometheus's fate as a powerful symbol for all our anxieties about science and technology. You know, the writer Franz Kafka had a fascinating take on this. He suggested that the myth's real power isn't in the answers it gives us, but in the questions it leaves behind. It starts with a mystery, the origin of human creativity, and it ends with that inexplicable mass of rock where Prometheus was chained. The legend tries to explain things, sure, but it never really solves the puzzle. And that's what brings this ancient story right back home to us today. It forces us to ask that really hard question, where is the line? At what point does our own relentless pursuit of knowledge, our own fire, become a dangerous overreach? When does it create unintended, maybe even monstrous consequences? It's a question that is thousands of years old and one we still have to answer every single day. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.